Hello everybody, my name is Jyoti Strakonicus, aka Ren, and we are all here for a very, very important subject to talk about. For those who have not watched my latest video, I highly implore that everyone watch that just to get a basic understanding of the current rules of VCard as of right now. But that being said, with those current rules, there are a lot of flaws to say the least. There are paradoxes, there are things that just do not work or make sense. There are specific wordings throughout the script that just don't make sense or are confusing, as well as some mechanics that are just simply unfair to some players, which is very, very unfortunate. Now, I don't want to bash gamer subs or VCard too much. I am just here to give critiques and bring light to all of the unfortunate mishaps throughout the rules, but it seems that they still need a bit of polishing when it comes to this, which they have addressed, that they have seen player feedback and are going to be making changes soon. Those have not been made yet, so I still want to shed light on all of these things just to make sure we have every corner covered, essentially. Whew, there's a lot. Okay, so to start this video off, we need to look into the history of a different card game, which I'm sure you are all very well aware of, being Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically, there was a legendary piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! History that happened a long time ago, and this event basically sparked by these two gentlemen here. Now, for those who don't know these two, or what they're holding, I'm about to explain. The clear box that they're holding is an entire deck. I am dead serious. The case that they're holding is an entire deck, and it is hundreds of cards. The whole point of this deck was designed purely to make games take forever. There were even very specifically cards put into the deck that just made it shuffle. I'm dead serious. This was designed to waste time, and they had a special apparatus purely designed for carrying and shuffling this thing. This was an absolutely horrible day for the event organizers, I'm sure, and as well as for the players who had to go up against these guys. Now, you're probably wondering, how many cards were in this player's deck? 2,222! And the printed deck list for the deck was 100 pages of text. Now, you're probably wondering, what does any of this have to do with VCard? Well, VCard has a very specific rule in the game where it says there is a minimum of 50 cards in your deck. There is no maximum. Yu-Gi-Oh! In early days also did not have a maximum. And because of these two gentlemen and this very, very specific event, Konami was forced to change the rules to make the max deck size 60. I was even joking about it in the comment section of one of my past videos about someone bringing like a giant Dakimakura case or whatever, just filled to the brim with cards, and that being legal in this game. That is somehow legal in this game, and there's no max, so you could have more than this, which is insane. And you know, if they don't change that rule, people are going to exploit that. That is a major design flaw that, as a card game, I'm surprised they didn't learn from Yu-Gi-Oh! That is very, very interesting to me. That is crazy. This is so game-breaking. And the fact that VCard specifically is supposed to be a game designed around simplicity, this just blows that out of the water, to say the least. It is freaking diabolical. But that's not even all of it. This is extravagant, don't get me wrong, but there are some other things that are also just game-breaking. More specifically, more importantly, when it comes to Mascot and VTuber interactions. Now, in my last video, explaining the rules and whatnot, I explained that a VTuber card would give +1, +2, and +3, being a total of 6, depending on the card. If, like, let's say, for example, the cards on screen, Bradley, because it is the correct attribute and the correlating mascot to Aethel, they would get a +1, a +2, and a +3. Now, you're probably thinking, how is this that much of an issue? The issue is that everything that I just stated, I am unsure of. Now, when you're reading lines of text in this game, you obviously apply those benefits and whatnot. The issue that I don't know is if you only apply one line of text or all lines of text. So it could very well be you just give the highest bonus, you give all of the bonus, you get to pick which bonus. I don't know. The rules don't explain that. Now, granted, with my knowledge of other trading card games, you usually go stanza by stanza and then apply those effects respectively. So in this case, because each line is its own thing, I would imagine and do think I was correct when I said a mascot that properly correlates to a VTuber does give +6. Again, I'm not sure, but I am very confident on that. However, if I am wrong, this needs to be addressed in the rules. It needs to be discussed that this specifically states that you only choose one line or one stanza, or if all sets of stanza are applicable. This is more of a minor thing, but it is a thing that I noticed nonetheless, and I thought it'd be worthy enough to bring up just in case if the people behind VCard had a different idea or perspective and players had a different perspective on that matter. Speaking of things to be unsure of, when it comes specifically to support cards. Now, when it comes to support cards in interaction with the board, they share the same space as the mascot cards. Now, another issue that I don't know, that I assumed in my past video, was that do support cards stay in the support zone until the end of the round, or do they, after played, go to discard? I don't know. Again, based on my knowledge of other card games, I would imagine it stays in the support zone until the end of the round and then goes to discard. That's how I imagine it. That's my understanding of the current rules that are written. Again, I am not sure because this is not specified nor expressed. This also brings up an issue of just rules and specifications about resolution times being unconcise. What I mean by that is, in a game like Magic the Gathering, there are hundreds of lines stating when what resolves, how they resolve, what specific order they go in, and there's even a specific zone called the stack, purely where cards are played till they resolve. Magic is very, very specific on when things resolve and the timing that things happen. In VCard, it is much, much more vague. And this more so specifically denotes to, let's take for example, mascot cards. Like how I mentioned in my previous video, when you play a mascot card that is of an advantageous element to an opponent's mascot, you get to destroy it. Do you destroy it immediately? Does it go to the graveyard immediately? Does it stay there? I'd imagine it goes to the graveyard immediately. But also, when it comes to resolution effects, when are power levels tallied? Are they tallied at the very end, at the resolution phase? Are they constantly checked throughout the turns of the game? Are they constantly checked after every single card is played? Again, this is very concise and very vague in its terms because we don't have specifics. We just have very vague text box for like how phases work, not resolution phases, or like when effects activate or when things trigger or resolve, so on and so forth. Now, the next part that I'm going to talk about is probably the most detrimental to the game. Let's take, for example, a hand like this. This is your opening hand. As you can see, there are only mascot and support cards. Now, the reason why this hand is not good for multiple reasons is, one, you do not have a power level card. You need a power level card in order to continue forth through the game. Now, for those who know the rules, probably would think, oh, that's not so bad because if you get a hand like this, you can just mulligan. The issue with that is that if you mulligan and you still don't have a VTuber card or power level card, you just automatically lose the round. I'm dead serious. You just lose the round. You don't get to do another mulligan. You don't get any other additional chances. You just lose the round. That is super, super bad. You should not punish a player for getting bad luck. The bad luck is already punishment enough. In other card games like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Digimon, literally any other card game, if you get a bad hand, you have a bad hand that you have to deal with and you have to just hope you draw into something that's better to balance out your hand and climb out of the ditch that you got stuck in. But in this game, you are punished for getting bad luck. That is super, super bad. As well as this very much messes with how many like copies and like numbers and amounts that people should run in a deck. How many VTuber cards should we run to be safe so that way we don't brick and then automatically lose a round? How many mascots and support cards do we need alongside that to where we're not bricking, but also to where we have a balanced hand so that way we don't starve ourselves later on through the round? If you were to ask me on my opinion to fix this, at the beginning of the game where you would do a mulligan, do not do a mulligan. Instead, just do a free hand of equal size. And then if they still don't have it, just have them keep mulliganing until they get a power level card. Do not make it to where, oh, bad luck, you lose. No, 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 no. That is super, super bad. Keep making them just refresh their hand until they have something. Because the game is very, very integral on having a power level card at the beginning of the game. So it is super unfair to where if you don't have one, you're just screwed. As well as, back to what I was saying about how many copies you should run. The way the rules are right now, you only want one power level card. You do not want any more. And I'm about to explain that real quick. In this board state, both players have started their game. I put all these as like mystery question mark cards on the back face because it doesn't matter what cards they are. Let's say they both play their power level cards and then they both have their opening hands or whatnot. The reason why having more than one power level card is bad is because you can't play it. After you have played your first power level card, you can't play it. Now, there are some cards that allow you to, like I know there is specifically one card, I forget which one it is, but there is one support card that allows you to swap a power level card you have in play with a power level card you have in your hand. Other than that, having a power level card in your hand through the game is a dead card because you cannot do anything else with it. So it just sits in your hand. And another reason why that is detrimental is because of what I'm about to show you now. The reason why is because there is another rule in the game that specifically states if you cannot play any more cards in your hand, you lose the round. So having dead cards in your hands will just make you lose the round faster. And I'm about to show you why. Let's say both players start their turn, they play the power level card. First player will draw their card, then they'll play their card. It doesn't matter what it is in this instance, I'm just showing this as an example. So they play their power level card, then the next player will go, they'll play their card. Next player, play their card. Rinse and repeat, just back and forth. In this specific example that I made, I'm just having the players play one card at a time. But eventually, because both players are playing cards, they're eventually going to run out of cards in their hand. When they run out of cards in their hand or do not have any cards left to play, the person who runs out of cards first just loses the round. And now there is also another rule that states whoever has the power level lead for 3 turns or more of their turns, they win the round. Now, for people who haven't necessarily caught on, with both of those specific rules in play, it makes it impossible to tie in this game. Because there's an automatic win mechanic if you have the lead for 3 or more turns, and then there's an automatic lose mechanic if you run out of cards. This makes checking power levels at the very end of a round completely null and void. It is entirely useless because you're never going to ever get to that point because a player will either win or lose before that is ever checked. It is insane. It is actually diabolical and a huge oversight on their part. So like I said earlier with having power level cards in your hand, basically, if you have power level cards in your hand, it basically means you're going to lose faster. You're just hoping you don't lose as fast as your opponent. As well as, there's another rule where during the game, you only draw on your first turn of the first round. You do not keep drawing cards, and you are limited to playing only one to two cards a turn. 1 or 2. You can't even play 0 or else you also lose. You can't play 0, you can't play 3 or more, you have to play 1 or 2. And because you're not furthermore drawing cards each turn, someone's going to run out eventually. So unless a player keeps the power lead for 3 or more turns, someone's just going to lose because they don't have enough cards to play. That is why having a power level card in your opening hand outside of the one in your power level slot is a brick. Now, when it comes to each player only drawing 1 card a turn, this I do have to kind of defend a little bit. It's not as bad as you think. That is definitely not where the root cause of the problem is. The problem is if a player cannot play a card, they lose. It should not be that way. I'll explain that in a little bit, but back on to what I was saying about draws. In my opinion, the draws are fine. Each player only drawing one card on their first turn and no further after that, that is totally fine. Because each game is broken up into rounds, if each player was drawing a card on each of their turns, they would run out of cards throughout their deck way too fast, just wouldn't have any cards to play. And also, there is no rule saying if you run out of cards in your deck and you can't draw any more cards from your deck, you lose. There's nothing like that either. In other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, there's a mill rule where if you run out of cards, you lose. Now, because you cannot draw more than one card a round, this honestly kind of works fine. Granted, it makes the games a bit slower and you won't be getting cards in your hand unless you play other effects that allow you to draw cards. Outside of that, it is going to be kind of a slow game and you're just going to be playing 1 to 2 cards each turn. If this were not the case and each player were to draw on each of their turns throughout a round, they would cycle through their decks way too fast. And then they would just run out of cards because they have no cards in their deck. They can't draw any more cards. They would have nothing to play. And then the game would just be soft locked. Let's take, for example, if both players were at like, I don't know, 3 points, but one player did not have any more cards in their deck going into the next round. They can't draw any more cards because all their cards are either in the discard or the prize pool zone. It's soft locked. They can't do anything about it. They can't do anything about it. They're just stunned and the game cannot finish. So now going back to the main root cause, which is if you can't play a card, you lose the round. They need to change this rule because this is a major issue in the game. It is super unfair to the player who goes first because the player who goes first is the player who lost the power level round to begin with. So it's just more so punishing the person who's already at a loss and punishing them even further. In my opinion, a good way to resolve this, change it to where if you cannot play a card, you go to the resolution phase. Because keep in mind, because of the obligatory lose and the obligatory win rules, you never go to the resolution phase. I explained that a little bit earlier, which the resolution phase is where you count your totals and tally up all your points to your power levels from your mascots and supports that add onto your power level card. Do not have it make you automatically lose. Have it go to the resolution phase. That way the phase actually has a purpose and you can actually have that in the game without it just being pointless. And so that way it's slightly more fair for both players, especially the player who's going first and already at a loss. So like I have said earlier, throughout the game, there is no actual way to tie because of the specific rulings. But there's a little bit more to that that could have been an issue, but has already been resolved due to earlier erratas before I started recording this. So as of right now, it is stated in the rules that if the players tie a round, they just play an additional round. That I am totally fine with. That is an A-okay thing in my book. It did not used to always be this way. The rulings that they had for a tie before they errated it to just being play another round were a little more complex and tedious. I don't have the exact verbatim text, but I did write it down in my own wording to explain it for the previous video until I realized, oh, you can't even tie, and then as well as, oh, they errated it. So this was the original ruling. The ruling stated, if there was a tie, which, as I explained, there can't be, if there was a tie, both players draw 3 cards from their deck and sets them face down. These cards are treated as prize cards and are not added to the player's hand. Another round is played with their current hands, and the loser of this round adds all cards from the tied round as well as the 3 face down prize cards to the prize pool zone. The reason why this is bad is because 1, it's just more complex layers. This is supposed to be a simple game. That's just so complex. Again, like I said, they errated this, so it doesn't matter. I just want to explain and rant about this just for funsies. It says both players draw 3 cards from their deck. What if neither player has 3 cards in their deck left? Do they just draw as many as they can? Like, what happens then? I'd imagine that'd be the case. So that was never explained anywhere in the rules. Like I said, there's no rules on decking out in the game. Now, the last piece that I have to touch up on that I've had on screen for a little bit is the piece of information that everyone has been losing their minds over the most, at least from what I have seen, and that is the prize pool zone. For those who don't know the rules, the prize pool zone basically acted as when you lose a round, you put your cards into the prize pool zone. The winner of the game gets to keep all of the cards in prize pool. This basically makes this a gambling game, which is super not good. This is supposed to be a fun game with VTubers, and because this is a very exclusive product, it makes this stuff extremely bad. This rule would basically make it to where people just would not want to play because they don't want to lose their cards. Now, luckily, they have changed this recently to where it is an optional rule. I'm not too sure about this, but I don't think on launch this was an optional rule. I think this was mandatory. Now, some of the VTubers that I have watched have talked about this and stated that people who were making the game asked them and said, oh, hey, this would be a funny idea. And they kind of like laughed and it's like, aha, yeah, that would be kind of funny. And they took that way too seriously. So yeah, having a built-in gambling mechanic, my opinion, not a smart idea. That wasn't a good thing. Now, as I stated in my previous video of like explaining the rules and whatnot, I brought the idea of basically using your prize pool zone as an exile or a banishment zone, similar to how in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic they have those respectively. So that way the loser is still kind of like punished for losing, but not too harshly. At least to the point of having their cards stolen off them. So yeah. Another main issue with this is that it just rubbed players off the wrong way. It says, oh, we have to bet our cards. Well, we're just not going to play then. That's how people like originally saw this as, and they should have changed or like worded it better. And like I said, they just need to be more specific throughout the rules. But yeah, like I said, this has since been errated, so it's an optional feature. So you can just choose to put them in your discard or just keep it in the prize pool, like I said, as an exile thing. So that's pretty much everything. Basically just to go back and touch upon everything that I just mentioned as like a simple little synopsis. Basically, we had the issue of there being no maximum hand size, so people could just have an unlimited deck size to ludicrous amounts. We had the unexplained rules that weren't specified of what stanzas take effect. Do all take effect? Do only some do? When do they take effect? And specifically for mascots, when they resolve, when they resolve, when things are discarded, when are actions taking place, when do other effects proc, etc., etc. We have the unfair gameplay mechanics where if a player is losing, they just lose even harder, and there is no bounce back mechanic. It just says, oh, you got a bad hand, you lose. Oh, you keep getting bad hands, you lose. There's also punishing the player who is already at a disadvantage at the beginning of the game. If they have the lower power level, they go first, meaning that they are automatically going to run out of cards faster and then are going to lose first. And the fact that you are unable to tie in this game because of the mandatory win in unison with the mandatory lose rule. There is also that. And then also, last but not least, the prize pool sparking quite a bit of disturbance and hesitance in people playing the game. People not really being a fan of that, to say the least. But luckily, during the time of me recording this, last night, VCard as well as Shy Lily have both announced that they have seen and are addressing players' feedback and are working towards making improvements. I do have hope for them. I'm very appreciative that they have seen and addressed this, and they're taking the steps to properly fix things, because these were a lot of game-breaking things. And a card game is no simple feat to make. Even in the most simplistic circumstances, a trading card game is complicated. You need to be aware of multiple steps and phases that go on throughout the game. Even in my last video, when I was making the test game, it took me like an additional couple of hours to like fully think things through, because I had to read the stanzas multiple times of the rules and make sure that I was getting everything right and correct, making sure things were proccing properly, making sure that win and loss rules were being implemented, all of that. It was a lot. I just think that they just need to specify and simplify. They need to specify the things that are more vague, and they just need to take out the things or errata the rules that are unfair or potentially harmful to players that people have been upset about. And with all of that information covered, that has been everything that I have to talk about. All of the paradoxes, all of the rules that are just unfair, don't make sense, absolutely game-breaking. Though all of the things that I have personally noticed, I covered in this video. If more comes to light, whether that be of the current rule set or the future rule set that VCard will be updating, I will make a video on those addressing the new info that comes out and whatnot. And when it comes to my last video of me explaining all of the rules and whatnot, I will be sure to make a new video of the new rule set that comes out, explaining that furthermore. If any other information so happens to be announced at the time of my past video, this video, and any future updates that we may so happen to get, I will be sure to let you all know in some way, shape, or form or fashion, and continue to touch up on the rules and info of this game that we get along the way. Again, I just wanted to bring to light all of the flaws and all of the errors that have been made through the rules. I'm not here to bash or criticize anyone. I'm just here to basically just let people know, and for things that some players or even some people who made the game who did not notice things understand that these things need to be fixed, they need to be addressed and changed and tweaked here and there. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, I would implore you to subscribe to me here on YouTube, and if you like the video, please leave a like. I would very much appreciate it, as well as send this out to all your friends and anyone else who may so happen to also be interested in this type of topics, as well as other stuff. Here soon in a bit, after I've fully addressed all of this snazzy jazz, I do plan to make further videos about other variety content or whatnot, more so about like games, primarily Pokemon if I had to guess, based on my recent interests. But if you want to see more variety content and more funny stuff as opposed to just like general information and synopsis of VCard specifically, be sure to keep check of my channel, and I'll be sure to give that info to you. As well as, if you guys are interested, I also stream every now and again on Twitch. I'm still trying to make a schedule for that specifically, because recording and editing does take a big chunk of my time, as well as I also currently still have an actual job as opposed to this, so I do still have to take care of my routine activities. But if you want to support me and follow me over there, subscribe to me over here, I'd very much appreciate it. I hope you guys all have a blessed rest of your day, evening, night, dawn, dusk, whatever it may so be for you, and I'll see you guys next time. Rest easy, take care.